Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Susie and I are super excited to welcome Barb to the podcast today. And Barb and I actually have a little bit of a history. We grew up in the same church. So I am super excited for us to have this talk today with Barb. So without further ado, welcome, Barb. It's so good to have you here.
Hello.
I really appreciate you being on. And you had said that you knew Jenny from way back.
Yeah, and what I would say my lineage to where her and I really became interactive. I was born and raised in at Temple Baptist, where her grandparents were what I would say the hierarchy pastor. There was a huge split that happened, and we always go through the dates again. I want to say it was like 10 or 11 that the temple went through a huge split. And when that happened, I would say like majority of them went into our Prayer Baptists, Grace Baptists,
Maybe
Bethel.
Gilead,
Gillian's
Bethel.
another one. Yep. So I mean,
Yeah.
like there were branches that they all went to. Our family came to prayer, which inadvertently my brother had met his first wife through school, and she happened to go to prayer. So there was a lot of things pulling us there that made it way more comfortable for my family to join there. And that's where Jen's father was the pastor.
Mhm.
How old were you when I would have been 11? So how old would you have been?
Well, we came in 85 or 86. So I believe I was like 6 when we
Okay.
came to prayer. We're going on 40 years now. Oh my
I love
gosh.
it.
Or but yeah, and then I disconnected just after I was 17. So
So,
my informative years were very
Mhm.
much prayer Baptist. I can remember being able to wear shorts. I can remember running around on field days at the church, that kind of stuff. But as for structure, I don't really remember it. Prayer was the hub.
it's funny how like memories like that, I had the same ones. Like the first time I ever got a pair of jeans was when I was 13. And people do not understand how significant something like being able to wear shorts, being able to run around, being able to wear jeans and not a dress are, it's so impactful.
Was one of the differences because Temple was more what I would say modern thinking, where
Yeah.
we were allowed to wear pants, we were allowed to wear shorts, we were just modest, and you were no, like they weren't like, hey, come on down.
Sure.
But they definitely, when we went to prayer, that I would say almost shifted within a year of us being there. That it was, well, my mom was a business person, so she wore slacks to work. She worked in the dental industry, so skirts weren't always probably the easiest to work around in when you're in people's face. So my informative years were really in that time frame, the I would say the year, but by then we were, I would say we had built roots in there. The time frame, and again, my brother had married somebody that was based out of that church originally. One of my lifelong best friends, still to this day, we became aunts to, so the community was there. And there was a lot of, I say older, now I'm their age. That community, like there was a big hub of Temple people that it was familiar enough, but it wasn't a hard transition as much as you would
Yeah.
think.
So tell us a little bit about maybe just like your first few years at prayer. What was it like starting to get into the youth group, that type of thing?
I can honestly say, in some ways, I think that some of it was the golden years of our youth group. In the same token, I say it was probably the starting of the end in so many ways of that church, too. It was a melting pot of personality, and I've never shied off of it. I've never fit in the box, and I questioned a lot. So
Mm.
I, just like every friend or everybody that was in there, you go, you do, you hang out with your friends and stuff. And the more I got immersed, I stopped wearing pants at school, so on and so forth. the more I started, I would say where I really started questioning things was 14 or 15. But there was a sidebar. There's a flip side to some of this coin, and I'll get to that. But I had started questioning authority. I had started questioning what was accepted behavior and what was unaccepted behavior. So I had started making rumbles in different ways. I was involved in the church group. I was always the babysitter. I was one of the key people that babysat all the kids. There was like a group of us, four of us that were like either called individually or a group whenever the parents would go out and do whatever they did. And I'll leave it at that. But
don't tell them these days. I don't know.
There was a lot of fairs going on at the time that now has come to light that some of us kids kind of caught on, but it was kind of like that unspoken, like, oh, okay. And then now that we're all connecting the dots as adults, we're like,
making sense. Yeah.
We all sit there and think we saw way more than we really understood was going on out there. But it's funny. So anyway, but I would say I really started becoming a focus because I started becoming outspoken. I started questioning things. Again, this is my normal personality. When I'm on, I'm on. You can't douse my light. When I walk in the room, I come in confident. I'm somebody that carries myself well. And that can be intimidating to a lot of people, as I've learned through the years.
Yeah.
But in the same token, it was very much a shield. I had myself protected because I was starting to get targeted as the problem child, the sinner. I was starting to be targeted that way. Probably the first real crack that showed outside of my home was when the ladies had their ladies retreat, and I decided that I was gonna get drunk, and my mom got a phone because I got drunk, and some people that I was with, they couldn't find me, so they ended up doing a phone chain. My mom finds all the way up in Temperance, Michigan.
Yeah. So to clarify, the women of the church were on a ladies' retreat and they were out of town for the ladies' retreat. And then you and some of your friends got drunk and then they couldn't find you because you took off.
And I was about 15 when that happened.
You just took off. And then your best friend was freaking out and made a phone call, started the chain of calls.
And instead of them like just coming and looking for me in the neighborhood, because they lived in the park, they called her up in Temperance, and then she had to come down. She came down. Oh, let me tell you the hell I paid for that one.
For having to leave a retreat.
Oh, it was bad.
It's so funny how like the parents, and I don't know if your parents were like this, but the idea that I embarrassed my mom.
And that was a huge thing.
More significant than anything going on with me and why I did something. It was how I reflected on them. And so there was a lot of like pressure to act a certain way, be a certain way.
And I already had saw how things were starting to get handled around the house because, again, my brother started dating a member through school affiliation, but found out that we were there. She got pregnant. They were forced to get married.
Yeah.
I watched those dynamics just play out in my house, and it was the skeletons in the closet. Every time something spilt out, there was always somebody there to push it back in. And where I don't bury skeletons, if I have a flaw, I'm going to let you know it. It's just a part of me. I'm sorry if it offends you. I'll do better, but that's just how it is. And I think that's probably why I'm so I'm an open book no matter what. Where I was raised with for the better good, and then push it away and let's tuck it and put a little bow on it and make it look pretty, but really it's a bomb just waiting to go off. So I had saw how that had started playing out.
So how old were you when they got pregnant and then had to get married? And I don't even recall this. Did they have to get up in front of everyone and apologize, or was it like, quick, let's get them married so nobody knows?
It was the powers that be, which were the moms sitting there saying, well, basically you got to make this right. So they got married. They had 3 kids. They are divorced. The dynamics was, the play out of that was, y'all should have pumped your brakes and let them figure their shit out.
Sure. Yeah.
Same thing happened with my brother, and exact same thing. 3 kids, divorce.
That really started becoming a theme in my head of, I don't want to get married. I didn't want to have kids. I was already starting to have those general thoughts of, I don't want to be a man's slave. I don't want this. I had started seeking out independence different ways. It doesn't matter how much you try to shield your kids from stuff. We all started talking. We started having communication. The cracks were starting to show because a lot of us were able to communicate. Now, her siblings, she's got 6, and there's only one of me with my brother. So their big family was very integrated into the church too. So not in a bad way, just a lot of kids. But the idea of all that came with it always just was like, no, I don't want kids. So as I started testing, I would say I started going to the borders and testing what was the weakest link so I could start branching myself out of things. And again, I was starting to get noticed, and I got kicked off of the bus.
You were starting to get noticed because you were questioning, or because you started developing at that point when you were 12, 13?
Well, that's the other part of it. I'm well known. And I come by it naturally if you saw my family bloodline. So that started becoming a conversation. I was consistently always, I could never wear anything. It was always, you had to be here. Anything that,
and isn't it funny? Like, if you are a little heavier, top heavier, you are taught like, you can't just wear a normal shirt. Even if it's modest, it's like, oh no, you're a little more,
well, you had a t-shirt and a blazer or something always over. You always had a layer just to take that draw away from people, even though you started being like, okay, I'm dressed like an Eskimo. How's that 70-degree weather out there?
And what sucks is that you didn't do anything to create the big dumb test, but they shame you for it. And where it's like somehow you did this to cause men to stumble.
I'm starting to test the boundaries. My body's changing. The informative years are all starting to come up. And I ended up starting dating a guy that was outside of the church. This is when it sounds like it happened fast, but it was like within a year span of this phase happening. I got pregnant. I was immediately, we got to handle it. I needed to be handled. And that was coming from internal. At the same time, my biological father was dying of cancer in the VA hospital. So nobody was telling him because he was terminal. So I would be going up to the hospital with all this, like, I'm pregnant here, the guy, I can't say shit. The pressure was, we had to get married, we had to do this, we had to do that. And I didn't want any of that. It wasn't that I didn't want the baby. I just wasn't sure if I was going to keep the baby.
Yeah.
It's a personal choice, but mine was, if I'm not going to keep it, give it to somebody that would. The choice was made for me that I was going to go to youth camp. And their theory was, get me out of the environment, get me, let me kind of decompress from the hospital visits, get me away from the guy, and God will show his journey for me. I don't have the right words for it, but the programming that starts coming into play.
Yeah.
So I went to youth camp. I wasn't even there maybe 2 days, and I had started miscarrying. And I was whisked away very quickly. They got me back home. I unfortunately miscarried. The guy that I was with bounced. He was out. He found somebody else, which honestly, then it was horrible, so on and so forth. But as the adult, that was a lot. There was a lot of pressure being put on him. I would have ran too, in all honesty. And by the time that I was healed, I think I was in bed for like 2 or 3 days. By the time I got back up to the hospital, my father was in a coma.
Yeah.
So the timeline was like, I was 5.5, 6 months pregnant, go to camp, go through the miscarriage, and literally by the time I got back, he was completely shut down. And then within 2 or 3 days after that, he passed away.
You had a lot going on in a very short period of time.
I would say, what has become almost a very easy shield for me to put on, shut things down to get through the next step of things.
You're literally like healing from a miscarriage and then having to go to Jim's funeral. And we just went through my dad's.
Yeah. Now, by this time, everybody that will does know pregnancy. They know about the miscarriage. They know that Jim's passed away. Now I have to go face the tribunal of a funeral. You're having to be polite to everybody.
Yes. I was just going to say, we just went through this with my dad's, and it's like, oh my gosh, you just want to grieve. You just want to cry. You just want to sit with your family. And then it's like not saying anything against anyone that came, but it's
consoling them more than you're consoling yourself.
Yes, it's exhausting. But I can't imagine being a teenage girl and then adding the added pressure of you just went through a miscarriage, which is like horrible physically, but also mentally. And then having to deal with this in just a few days' time is just mind blowing for anybody of any age.
I'm very thankful for the friends that were through that stage. And I heard you say it on your video. People come into your life for a reason, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. There are many people that have come through my life that I believe were put in my life to get me through that stuff. Those really, really hard times. And I'm so blessed because I couldn't even, at that time, I had started mentally shutting down on so many levels. I wouldn't even walk into the room where the casket was. I would always stay outside, and my friends would take me out, get me out of the room, get me out of the building. We would take a walk. They would do anything and everything. The one part that turned into what I would say a very uncomfortable moment was the guy that was my boyfriend that broke up with me and stuff. He did show up. He was just asked to politely leave, that it just wasn't the time or the place, kind of a thing. We had a conversation way after that of just like, I get it. You were close to him, but you were breaking my heart every way we could, because at that time he was my person, and that got wiped out. But with that said, I had what my core group of friends were what held me through it. It wasn't what I would say the helpful behavior of the adults in the room. I want to say a week to a week and a half of having the miscarriage to Jim's passing. And then it was, I want to say maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. It was not long. And a lot of that time frame is blurred a little bit. The pastor, not Pastor Bartlett,
the deacons.
Thank you. You said it, because that's when we got the issue last time. Decided to come to the house and visit with my mother, and proceeded to tell us that in order for me to come back into the fold, is I needed to stand up in front of the church and confess basically all my sins and ask for forgiveness from the church and blah, blah, blah. I was not going to be allowed to hang out with my friends. Like, I was going to be ostracized. I was to be in the back, that kind of stuff. And basically like walk every line that they chose that path for me.
Oh my gosh. I hate that for you. I cannot believe it. It's like these people who think that they are so much better than everyone else come to you and just say, hey, we're about to treat you really, really mean and embarrass the crap out of you. And we're going to tell you what to do probably for the rest of your life. Okay, sure.
Actually, this is the one time that she stood and said, there's no way we're doing this. I looked at her and I was like, I'm not doing this. You do what you want to do with that church, but I'm not doing this.
Good for you. Good for her. Wow.
Yeah. And I would say, just to clarify, so my dad didn't even know about this meeting.
No, I think he might have known about the meeting, but
he definitely didn't authorize the meeting.
I don't think he had the power. It was
there was like
people with that situation.
Yeah, there was like a rogue group of deacons in the church that were there before my dad became pastor, and so they kind of controlled certain things within the church. I know at least one of those deacons who was having an affair with another lady in the church and then showed up at a big fellowship meeting, revival meeting, drunk, and confessed to my dad and the deacon board that he was having an affair and went into great detail about what they had been doing. So it's like one of those men that showed up at your house to demand of you as a 17-year-old girl to go up and confess your sins in front of the congregation was doing his own things behind closed doors. I mean, how ironic is that, everybody?
My story isn't indifferent to a lot of people that had a hand in that scenario.
Yeah.
I've watched karma work its magic, or as some people say, balance the books. And I didn't have to do a dang thing. They showed their own colors.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And, I think about sometimes, why does this stuff happen like that in the church? As long as it's hidden, as long as it's secret, they're okay with that. But as soon as something happens, like you get pregnant, that's very obviously out in the open. My husband put it the other day like this. I think these people have a culture that they are trying to protect, and anything that is out in the open makes it seem like that's not what's happening in their culture. I'm gonna look it up while we're talking. Continue talking.
I call it you get a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a great way to put it. I love that.
Sure.
You get to see them for what they really are.
What he said is you want to pretend all this stuff doesn't exist because we like to think we're better than that. The church, as people, as humans.
Oh yeah.
So anything you do to hide it. Yeah. They like to pretend that it doesn't exist or that they're better than that. And if they can bully a 17-year-old girl.
I believe that's the right term for it. I think they really came in with the mindset of there's no male figure here. We're going to come in. We're going to kind of test our little theory on this, and we're going to strong arm them to think that they have to do this. When in reality, it just severed. It confirmed everything that I had already started feeling and questioning. For me, it was, I'm done. I'm done with this whole situation. I am done being whatever you all think I need to be. I need to figure some stuff out. Where my mother, she chose to go to some other churches and stuff. And I went to a few to see, as we all know, as soon as they're all linked, there's a phone tree that has it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're all linked together.
Yeah. As soon as I'd walk in, there's familiar faces no longer had a familiar face. It was, bring the sinner back to the fold. And I got done being fed that card.
And see, ultimately what happened is they took their ideology, what they thought you should be doing, and trying to put you in this box. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to fit into this mold. And ultimately what happened? You left. You left the church. I don't know if you've left Christianity as a whole, but it's possible. A lot of people do. I mean, Susie and I talk to survivors every day that have had a similar, not exact experience, but a similar experience where they were essentially judged by the church, told you have to fit this mold, you have to do this, you have to do that. And ultimately, they were not accepted for who they were. They weren't loved unconditionally like Christ would do. They're the opposite of that. And what did that do? It turned people off to Christianity altogether. So is that the goal for anyone that's listening? Like, if you're in the IFB or if you're in some other cult, because that's what it is, are you doing what you think is right because of your own paradigm of what you think people need to live their life like? Or are you actually doing what's right and being Christ-like and accepting people for where they're at and loving unconditionally? Because if you don't do that, you're going to turn more people away from Christianity. And the whole thing is just really crumbling. Honestly, there's so many people we talk to who are legit atheists now because of stuff like this.
From that point to now, it took me on my own personal journey of researching about other religions, researching about cults, researching. My family constantly cracks jokes at me when I get into a kick and I'm like watching documentaries and looking at stuff, and they're like, oh, she's back on one of her things again. And they don't even, Mom, you've watched this 3 times. I was like, but every time I watch it, I find something new. So don't judge me. It's answering a question I'm struggling with. But it did really curve me. But for me, and people that were there know the moment. I know the moment because it was the essential. I'm free. I'm done. I'm no longer going to live any more lies in my life anymore. Was when they were walking Jim's casket out the funeral home. And as we were walking out, my brother's best friend at the time was walking next to me, and my knees buckled and I passed out. And they were able to get me into the limo and stuff. But for me, everybody around me was like, "Oh, she lost her dad," and like they went through like this whole schmeal of what coming up to me even afterwards of like, "Are you okay, honey?" And meanwhile, in my head, I'm going, "I'm done. There are so many things that are never going to happen." And the one thing that I had held that only two other people at that point in time in my life knew and understood was that my dad was sexually abusing me.
Oh.
And at that time, it was one of the most physical, mental, spiritual release at that moment of watching that body being rolled out, and me finally understanding I have an out. I'm out. Everybody else was looking at me for a different reason. So,
Right. And it makes it worse when they're all like, oh, he's such a great man. And like, God's doing all of this. And it's like rocks in your mouth where you're like so full of it, you just want to vomit.
so it really, for me, that's the one moment I think that anybody that was there and remembers it will know the minute that I decided no more on so many levels. It wasn't until after the visit from the church, my mother and I both agreed that we weren't going to go through any of that. She chose to go visit other churches. I started pulling out. But it wasn't until, and I crack a smile with it because it sounds lame, but it was a door that opened. We were watching an Oprah Winfrey show, and it was back when she used to do what I would say real tough conversations, and she brought up sexual abuse. And it opened the door because I got real quiet through watching it, and my mom started asking questions. And I finally let it out, and immediately she called Mrs. Bartlett. Mrs. Bartlett gave us a Christian counselor, and I started getting help. I'm controversial with the counseling situation. I don't believe I should have gone to a Christian counselor. Now, especially my second round of going through counseling for my disease and now understanding completely different how they handle things. But I will say this, I got a good brick to build on. There are a lot of things that I still will concede that came out of it that were good. Unfortunately, one of the big things that was really pushed was forgive the sinner, hate the sin. And for years, I bottled that. I carried it. And now, mind you, now from the time frame of me having the miscarriage, Jim passing away, me starting to speak up about it was a matter of maybe less 8 months of starting that stair stepping process. Now, mind you, I also lost all my friends out of church. I had to start to redefining myself. I was always like half in with the church, half out of the church. Everything that changed, I can't say I lost all my friends. Crit is my only one because we were joined together for family and stuff. But that unit, that family was very much a comforting thing. You talk about true Christians. Nana B was it. And Papa was too, but Nana B definitely was the head of the family on how to help be true Christian and show what a true Christian was.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. She was
But
awesome.
I was probably immersed in counseling want to say about 6 months.
Mhm.
And this is where I sit there and say, I truly believe my higher power brought some major people into my life. Two very good friends of mine that are outside of the church that actually helped me navigate, whether they realize it or not. And tell me if you ever have this when you're like, I would say like there's an indoctrination, you see something and you're kind of doing like what I would say that 5 minute, okay, that doesn't make sense in my head. And everybody else is looking and going, how does that not make sense?
Yeah, it's your deconstruction.
Yes.
So once you get out, I call it like an onion that you're just peeling back the layers. And every time you discover something new or you're around another situation where your paradigm's being challenged, right? You're like, wait, this is not how I was taught, but this doesn't seem wrong, but I was taught that it's wrong. It's deconstructing. So that's what you were experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was really, I'm blessed to have those people be woven into who I am now, because I don't think that I would have gotten even to the point I am, to that stage where I went into the counseling and started working on myself and so forth. Then I meet this cute guy driving in front of the video store, and I'm like, oh, he's cute. Go back in after my cigarette, go about my day. Oh, that guy was really cute. And then he goes walking past me, and I'm like, does he work here? And it's a running joke. The person that didn't want to have kids, didn't want to get married, met this man who told me on our very first date. Our first date was at like 10 o'clock at night at Ramshorn in Livonia. And I was already in counseling. I was dating a guy that was completely physically a dick, but at that time, my brain still hadn't clicked that you're worth better than that. And here comes this guy that he's like, I'm sitting there telling him, I'm like, listen, a lifespan in my life, 3 months. And either I'll destroy your life or you end up resenting me. And I blatantly, at that point in time, I had already conceded to the creed of my life's an open book. I'm done hiding this. This is a part of me. And I told him on our first date, I was like, listen, I'm going through counseling. I'm trying to get my life in order. I'm dealing with covering from this, just came out of the church. I mean, I'm spilling it all on the line at this table with this man.
Love it.
And again, he's 17 too. So I'm sitting there giving him all this stuff. And he looked at me and goes, I'm going to marry you one day. And I was like, you're on crack. And he's, no, I'm going to marry you. As his mom's flicking the light.
Come inside. And guess what? The rest is history, because here you are.
Exactly. And
I'm married. Yep.
Constantly. But he was perfectly broken for me. He came with his own trauma, his own journey. And somehow the two of us made it through. But the key part was having a safe person.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's fiercely guarded about me. He will jump and then ask questions later, which he's gotten better about. But it's again that higher power saying, you can do this. You just got to find the right way. And I am very blessed to say now that through all the dark times, all the hardship, the days that suicide was real for me, I make no bones about it. It was an option in my head. Probably started, I would say the real creep in thoughts started probably around 13, when I really felt like I couldn't get out of my world.
It's a good way to put it. And you see that leaving any way you can, even physically, the only option, you know?
And believe it or not, because I was cracked in such a way in my younger years, it's been something that I've struggled with all my life. The irony is 16 years ago, I had a genuine crack ankle from playing sports with my kids that led me into a disease that's uncurable that happens to be called the suicide disease.
Oh, really? Wow.
So when I go back to that counseling part, when they started we had to start pulling apart what this disease was doing to me and so on and so forth. And then when we hit a wall of, if you're going to have this surgery, you have to go through this counseling. And I came in with the mindset, I'm fine. I've handled all that shit before. I don't have to talk about it. We don't need to talk about my dad. We don't need to talk about this. We don't need to talk about that. And then it was put to me of, either you go to counseling or we're not doing the surgery. So I was like, all right. And I went begrudgingly because of all the things that I was taught in the first round. I really held to the core at that time. It was, well, oh, that doctor said this, even though I would seek counsel, it wasn't in the same frame of mind. And then when I went into my counseling for this disease, it wasn't until I realized I should have been with a counselor for sexual abuse. I should have been with this. And things started coming together, because instead of it being what I would say a typical a year counseling, it turned into 4 years of me having to deconstruct, reconstruct, and then now apply it into what now is going to be my version of life now. And it's one of the things I've really truly become very passionate about. Getting a good counselor is key. Getting the right counselor is the most important part, because you don't go to a Christian counselor for sexual abuse. You don't go to a Christian counselor for alcoholism. You don't go to a counselor for anger management, or a Christian counselor for anger management. You go to a Christian counselor for guidance when it comes to where you feel your spirituality and your connection with the Lord. You not go to somebody that's going to sit there and say, well, the Lord says that X, Y, and Z, and this is what I think you need to do, because all critical thinking was wiped out of my brain.
Well, and I want to clarify, when I was saying I was like, that's so great and good for you, I meant just that your mom believed you. Not that you went to a Christian counselor. So not to a Christian counselor, because you're right. Some of them do more harm than, I mean, they're horrific, and they're not even like trauma informed or trained. So many of them end up blaming the assault victim for the stuff that happened. And they just give you an added list of rules that you have to then follow, just like the church. Now, I meant, like, I'm just glad that your mom believed you in that moment. And
that is a controversial conversation.
Oh, really interesting. Did she so I gotta ask though, did she know beforehand? Like, how do you not know this stuff is happening in your house? You know what I mean? I don't get it.
I don't really have a good answer for that. One of the things that both counselors enhanced was, this is going to show its colors as you get older. And I really didn't understand that, but now I do, in the sense of like being a mom, being where I am now, that how did you not see it? I can honestly sit there and say, when it was the most active, she was working 2 jobs. He also went through a bat of his first round of cancer, so he was home a lot, and she was working. My brother, we're 8 years apart. He had his own life. He had his own family going on through some of this, and he was just a teenager himself. To answer if anybody noticed, I would be willing to say yes, people saw signs. I will also sit there and say I'm caught in a generational / cult like mentality where it hasn't been. I didn't find out through until probably the last 5 years. There's family members that still have no clue, and they were in the room with him. And I have one family member that was like, I would have never called it, but now that you say that, I never felt comfortable around him. And I had to explain, you weren't his target. My girlfriends, one of them, we had a conversation. She knew about it, but she never, it wasn't until like things connected in her head, but she brought up a moment where she was always at my house spending the night, so on and so forth. And he walked in the room when I was in the bathroom and she was in my room, and I blew up at him. Told him to get out of my room. He is not to be in there, so on and so forth. And she years later, when that conversation was brought back up, she goes, I didn't realize it. Like, that was a fear. Get her away from, and I was like, that's one of the reasons why when we had sleepovers, I made sure my door was shut or we were in the basement. I didn't want him anywhere close to my friends. And that was very stressful at times because there's that facade of, oh, this is my dad, and ha ha ha. And there's pictures, we've talked about this, Jen, of there's pictures that'll instantaneously take me back to a moment of like, yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been there.
But again, these were all things that was marked as a problem child. I think that it was for the cult, it was, oh, the devil's got a hold of her. There's something wrong with her, blah, blah, blah. And in reality, I was a troubled child. Nobody saw the clues because they were too busy trying to pray it away. And instead of really looking into what was going on.
Jenny and I have been talking about this. We don't want to use that word troubled. You were traumatized.
Oh, yeah. But
and
to them, that was literally, that was the word that
that's
was
how they saw you. Oh no, fuck them, man. They're so awful.
Right.
I hate that your dad even did that to you. I mean, in general, but then also like after he was going through cancer, like he just couldn't even keep it in his pants long enough to.
The cancer that took him was his second round. The first round was when things were really ramped up. And that's the part that still kind of blows my mind on so many levels. Because and again, it started when I was in pigtails. So it wasn't something that just came out of the blue. But it stopped when I was able to kick him. I remember kicking him and leaving a very big bruise and him having to explain, saying that he bumped into a table to my mom when she saw it.
Oh.
So there's memories very sustainably of like that, but the time frame was when he was in counts. And again, we're at church. When we come into church, everybody thinks we're the perfect little fucking family.
Sure.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And the fact that, and I mean, now with that said, and Jen always starts laughing when I sit there and say, yes, my wires were crossed. Let me tell you, I had a lot of fun in that church. And I will blatantly sit there and say there was a lot of times that people would say, don't do that. And I'd go, watch.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some of it was self-antagonistic. I'm not going to lie now, especially now that I totally accept my, oh, you think so? Okay, watch me mentality. Yeah. But it's taken me a long time to accept the fact that nobody did see it. Nobody said anything. I was programmed not to. So that freedom of now, but it's also become a choice to start being vocal. Because my story, unfortunately, is not unique. And I do have permission, Jen understands this. One of my closest other lifelong friends, the second pair to me knowing my history as it was when it was going on, is I have a very close friend that's in the ministry, and her brother was her violator, and it was not handled properly. And still to this day, she struggles with it just as much as I do. So what we typically do is try to let everybody know that you can survive, you can get out, you can change this. It's not easy. It's not the easy path by any means, but there's people that are out there that can hold your hand while those roads are a little darker.
Yeah. I love that you said that, Barb, because I think that sometimes when people hear a story like yours, they're just like, oh my gosh, she's been through so much. But on the other side of that, there's healing, there's a new life. You have an amazing husband who you met outside the church. That's very protective of you. You guys have children together. You have a life. You have done all these amazing things after all of that happened to you. There's a lot to be said for that. And now you are bringing awareness, you're speaking out, you're talking about your story. And I think that's amazing. You're bringing hope to the situation that, hey, my situation may not be unique, but it was a very difficult situation, but you can come out on the other side as a survivor and help other people with it. And I love that.
Well, one of the things I said actually early to Susie all of our stories are different. They're going to be different, just as like a different pair of shoes to each person. One person's going to try it and it's not going to fit. One thing that we all carry, the burden of knowing of how dark the world can be, the burden of knowing that darkness that comes when you're quiet with yourself, the burden of knowing that sometimes you're never going to get the apologies, you're never going to get the healing that you deserve. The other thing is, if we hold on to each other, we can carry that burden together. It's okay to hold each other's hand while that other one tears. Sometimes I'm going to be your shoulder. Sometimes I'm going to be your shovel. What do you need?
Oh, I love that.
And that, I think I was able to find my community outside of the church with that creed of life, but it's become a huge creed in our life, in our family, of not boxing in so many things. I'm unbelievably proud of those that I know that have been able to step out of the church, be able to find their way. But I know that this is just one more step for them to find that healing. And there's so many that are still in it. And it's not against God, and it's not against a higher power, whatever you want to call them. It's the people that dictate it. And that's the hardest part. I will never walk into a church again. Every time I've had to, in the past couple of years, for funerals or whatever, it's a big running joke that it hasn't started up in Florida.
I love it.
And I don't do well when people start singing some of their old hymns. I tend to start making faces and then get accused of, oh, she's crying so much. And meanwhile, my girlfriend's going, if you don't stop it, I just can't take it serious anymore.
Yeah, some of that is triggering for sure.
It is. And it really, and that's the best word. Now that I have so many more words to be able to identify now, because that was the other thing. In the first counseling, there weren't those identifier words. In this round, it was way easier to be able to explain to people, like, really, I'm not that fucked up. I'm fucked up. I have words now. I can even give you an emotional chart if that'll help.
That. Oh my gosh. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you here today. I know Susie probably feels the same way, that we were able to have this conversation and just end really on a high note. I love that you are so bold, and I love your tenacity. Your zest for life at this point in the chapter of your life is just really inspiring. And oh gosh, I love you, Barb. We just really thank you for coming on today, and I hope you all enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I love getting to connect with people who have just been through things and are willing to talk about them. There's something so refreshing about connecting with someone who's been through it and is open about it. And I know you share on here is really, I do believe it's going to help. There's going to be a person who, I feel like sometimes you're just building safety net where there are people walking a tightrope and they're hiding these secrets of stuff that happened to them. And when they're ready to start healing and talking about it, hopefully they'll find us here in your story.
And one of the things they need to hear is it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Do not carry somebody else's burden. And it doesn't have to be that way. I have seen in fruition, not only in my life, but where I've seen the seed has been put and things have grown. And I know that now, even I'm still healing now, and please understand, I will always be healing that part of that child that at times when I get frustrated and I see a moment and a smell or something will trigger it and that feeling will come up. I'm still healing it, but the best way I can heal it is by trying to help others through it now. Because I know the darkness. I know the difference of that darkness to understanding I didn't need anybody else's light. I needed to find my own light.
That's good.
And with that came strength, knowledge, and power. And that is key to healing. It's not easy, but it's way easier when you have somebody to be able to call on and be like, hey, I need help. So I really do hope this does reach a lot of people. It doesn't matter what part they are in their journey, but they're not alone. And the more we all talk out, the better it'll get. Because they can't hide in corners if you don't give them dark spot to hide in.
Healing is a process, a journey to be experienced, not just a destination.
You are not alone in this. It's okay to take your time, explore different perspectives, and find what resonates with you. Healing takes courage, and we believe in you.
Together, we can enjoy the ride.